Hi. So this is a truth that I found, which is, um, as far as I know, it makes total sense, and it's supported by everything on all the other channels about spirituality and meditation, your thoughts are not your own, all that kind of stuff. So essentially, um, we went into sensory deprivation for 4 days of total darkness in a sensory deprivation room where we could analyze our thoughts more, and all that energy that was used for the mental survival chores, which come through sight and environment handling, got freed up for metacognition, or thinking about thinking. Now, one of the things that I went toward, and one of the things I'm passionate about, is sentiment and sentimental training and sentimentality, which is essentially your toilet paper and you're putting a picture of a dog, a fluffy pug dog, next to it, and it induces sentiments of, it brings about that sentiment of cute, cuddly, fluffy comfort, which is what you want when you're thinking about your essential amenities. So that's sentimentality. So essentially what I was doing was I got in the room and I thought, well, I've been here for, I think it was a day and a half. And I thought, okay, I want to think about the concept of love. I want to know what the core belief love means to me. So I had this concept of love, which I tried to get to. And so I started thinking about, I had a girlfriend at the time, in the same interests, potentially could have been my mate. And I started thinking, right, okay, Major Payne, a movie, White Picket Fence, when he dreams about the white picket fence and it's all lovely. And so I'm thinking of the white picket fence, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, so my first love was this wonderful girl at college, and, and basically I'm thinking about that, and I'm going, wow, okay, awesome. And how did I feel about her, and how was that real love? And I started thinking, yeah, and she was friends with Sarah, and she was from the Sunshine Coast, and the Sunshine Coast is great. I'm from the Sunshine Coast, one of my favourite places on the Sunshine Coast. And about 2 or 3 minutes later, I was like, I'm not thinking about love anymore. It's very easy for your thoughts to get distracted. It's very candid. It's very obvious when you're in the dark room. And I went, right, I've stopped thinking about love, so I'm going to go back to love. I'm going to backtrack. I want to get back into that thought, that core belief. So I started thinking about love again, and I'm thinking, okay, so love is, who have I loved? I've loved this girl, that girl. Was that really love? Was anything really real? And I went on another tangent, and I started thinking about something else, and I continued to do this. And so what I realised was that it was like this perimeter around my core belief of love. And every time I tried to think about it, observe that thought, get into that thought, I was in the process of thinking, I would then go off on a tangent and start thinking about something else. Go off on a tangent and think about something else. So I would essentially be doing this. Now, the crazy thing was that I didn't realise it was happening. So it was this self-defense mechanism that was built into my core belief, that I would go on a tangential process away from the original thought of trying to get to this core belief, and I would think about something else, so much so that my attention, the temporal instability was huge, and that I couldn't keep focus on it. And so what I realised was that was a form of reduction or deduction. Now, when I was meditating the other day on A Course in Miracles, I was thinking about basically, okay, so this thought, this worry, anxiety that I have about this thing is not what I think it is. So that allowed me to then think, well, what is it? Or it also allowed me to think, it is like the heater in this room, which I'd already done a previous meditation where that I ascribed no meaning to it at all, and it brought that object into the present with no future or past connotations, and it was very much there. I was very aware of its shape, its line, its form, its presence. And by doing this, I started thinking, okay, so I started thinking about this person that I was with, and I thought, okay, so I don't remember their name. It's like, no. So I was like, okay, so this person, I said person to myself, this person had no, this worry that I have about this anxiety that I have about the relationship. That person has no meaning at all. Now, as I said this, the name of that person, let's say it was Tracy, came into my mind, and it was like, Tracy, okay. So I came to that conclusion, and that opened up a whole wealth of memory and sentiment and feeling and emotion, and it was linked to this person, which I had as a subject, which was an object of a lot of different feelings. And I thought to myself, well, that was induction. So rather than deduction and reduction, where it redirects your thoughts on a tangential process, which is essentially a self-defense mechanism that hides itself in not being able to tell that it's happening. So I thought, okay, so this thought, so this thought essentially induced. So I realised that this thought, this person, this idea, this memory of this person, this name, which had a lot of power from a previous event, induced my thinking that led up to that point. So while I thought that I was thinking in a linear fashion, I thought, yeah, I'm thinking, this is me thinking, and then I remembered something came up out of the subconscious, and I remembered. What I realised was that what happened was, long before I started on that thought process, I wanted to think about that person. My ACC, my anterior control centre, the part of my brain that makes decisions before I've made them, essentially has made them. It's already made up. It's in the hippocampus or something. And before you're about to do something, you say yes. Well, that actually decides and fires before you actually have the frontal lobe recognition and decision-making process. It's already decided in the back of your mind in the ACC. So you can go against the ACC and all those types of things. But so what ended up happening was I realised that it was inducing. This event of memory wanted to happen, and my thoughts were led up to it by the subconscious to get to this event. And here is the event. Here is the other event of being with that person. So it was such a powerful event that it had tendrils which stretched through time into a future event. And this is when synchronicity happens and deja vu. So some event is so powerful where no time exists, where you lose your time many times, however many times. This event might be a sequence of events, but from a specific event, this thing has tendrils reaching out in time that has energy from that event. So I might see something which reminds me of that person in reality, and this is a very subjective idealist mentality. Almost. And subjective idealist is the name of current spirituality from Cartesian times, from the 1700s. And even back then it had a very, discriminatory sense about it in the philosophical world. It was powerful. It was, I think, therefore I am, and all that kind of stuff. But essentially they still thought the mind controlled the body, and the body was a physical world, and we are an avatar, that this physical world is what everything is. It was very empirical, very corporeal. So even then it had a bad opinion. And that subjective idealism is essentially that I can influence the world. So I and the world is not necessarily separate, and that I have a definite impact on what manifests. So that's subjective idealism. So, but yeah, this event. So, this event, okay, events are, here is the event. Here I am going into the event. Here I am going into the event with my little butterfly, which is stimulus. And there's the event horizon. And here is all these bloody crazy things from the event. So here I am going into the event. I've reached this point here, which is the event horizon, where I no longer know whether I'm going in or coming out. My sense of time is gone. My sense of self from before has changed, and essentially I don't know until after the event, and then I go, hey, that event's over. That emotion has subsided. That motivation, which was unconscious and did not take any further, it was self-generative and generating energy for this event to occur, has now passed, and I'm out of that event. Now, some events are so powerful that they send tendrils back in the past or into the future. But essentially, we've got our memory, and we've got our little dude here walking, and he is going forward, bang, 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 into the memory. Memory has occurred into a whole bunch of previous memories, and or is it like a rocket ship that has, bear with me. Okay, so essentially here's the event, here is the phenomenon, the actual occurrence of this thing, which we have later remembered. Here is the event of memory. It is an event in itself. Now, maybe we reach into a whole bunch of collected memories and retrieve it from our subconscious, which is what we would normally think. We think it's not inductive. We think it's not reductive. We think that, basically, we control our memory. If we want a memory, we reach into the subconscious and get it. Or maybe our subconscious just below the conscious is kind of acting on a conscious self's mind's behalf, and it's reaching back and reaching into, say, a collection of 1,000 memories, of thousands of every single memory that was ever made. We have access to that. Or was that memory sent off like a rocket ship into the future to occur at this point in time, and then it hits us? Now, that is more accurate as to what happens. It is a inductive process. So as this firework, as this rocket is getting closer to the event of memory, then the thoughts start to radiate. It picks it up, and it starts getting thoughts that are going to lead to the arising of this memory from the subconscious. So our thoughts are inductive in the same way that a magnetic field, when you put it next to a copper wire with a light bulb, it will induce a current. The electrons from the magnetic field from the magnet will actually get picked up by the wire and light that bulb up. So it's inductive. It's like a distributor in a car. They just pull this. They just move these magnets around and you press the button and it pulls the distributor out, and it creates movement in the magnetic field, and it starts up the car. So it's a distributor, and it sends this electricity all over the place, and it's a way of generating electricity through movement rather than through carbon fuels and burning and all that kind of stuff. So turbines. So it's inductive. So our thoughts are inductive, which means this implies, the important thing of this is that if our thoughts are not our own, if our thoughts are guided by these entities from previous events, and you would call them entities in the sense that they almost have a mind of their own, that if our thoughts are guided and drawn toward a conclusion prior to us actually acknowledging that conclusion is going to happen, then our thoughts are inductive, just as they are reductive with our core beliefs. It's the way the brain seems to work. And so when people say our thoughts are our own, exactly. So what this implies, what this means, is a recognition of events, a recognition of the importance of putting energy into events and creating our own events, I guess, that are different or particular to our style or what makes us us, and what we want to generate further thoughts in the consciousness, because our mind won't discriminate between events created by people outside of ourselves and events created by ourselves. Both are entities, and both will reach out to connect. Just like when someone knows that you're going to call and they go to the phone and it rings and it's you, that is your event, effectively an entity affecting the both of you and reaching out into their life or whatever. So it's inductive. I thought it's just, so this seems to be evidence from a psychological experiment that reveals exactly how the mind is working, and memory, and these events that are entities that have tendrils that reach into the future or the past, which occur as synchronicities or deja vus, which we don't completely understand at the time. And it's very amazing when these things seem to transcend our understandings of how the laws of physics work, etc. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've seen examples of this. Thank you.